Welcome back to another video. I have over 70 plus wins on invasion mode already and have unlocked the ghillie suit. These are some of my top tips and tricks on how to win more invasions. So let's dive right in and get to the action. Number one is probably pretty obvious, but I feel like maybe playing the single player campaign can help a little bit. Finding out what exactly the objectives are that players will need to complete might help. I ended up doing this the hard way. I played over the 70 plus matches and I haven't even touched a second of single player mode. I did it the hard way. I started to figure out the patterns and where people were going, but that might be a good place to start quickly. Tip number 2 is how to play defense. Even though you're invading somebody else's single player game, sometimes you might run into more experienced players who are actually going to search you out and try to get you first. They tend to spam the invasion phones and try to track your location to get you first. So how do you defend against that? There's a few ways. In this example here, they kept spamming the same invasion phone over and over, so I knew their rough location. Where in the castle here, you only have one angle to get at me. Sure, that means he knew where I was, but at the same time, that limits the amount of options where he can be to get an angle on me. In this scenario, I also have 0 preparation time. I'm already ready. All I'm doing is waiting for him to try to pick a position where he thinks he has a shot on me. That forced him to come out from his hiding spot because he thought he had an advantage. I was ready, saw him setting up, boom, took the shot. In other cases, some players might be playing co-op and might be giving each other intel, or some of them might just be really quick, so you might not be able to have so much preparation time and figure out an angle like this. One good strategy might be to familiarize yourself with the more crowded areas of the map and find where more of your NPC characters are. So in this case, on that same map, I knew that the library usually had quite a few people in and around it, so I just ended up going in there, and no matter what, so in this case, he knew exactly where I was in terms of which building I was in, but he might not necessarily have been able to have distinguished who I was out of all the NPCs as easily, and he'd have to work his way in. Luckily, this library had a lot of different window types that weren't exactly perfectly clear, so I managed to get a shot off through one of the more obscure windows that was a little bit darker, while he was trying to take out all my friends. And I really don't want to call these guys my friends, but you get the point. Another tip would be to be a little bit more creative with positioning. You have all the abilities that they do in terms of climbing up walls, climbing up pipes, through windows. Use those abilities to position yourself a little bit better on the map. And after you've maneuvered yourself in a position, like I say, you don't necessarily have to go for the shot. Everybody wants to try to outsnipe each other sometimes, and you get into these little battles where you're trying to get the first peek or you're trying to get the first angle, and you don't necessarily have to do that. You have other tools at your disposal like grenades that you can use to make sure that you don't expose yourself and have to try to be the first one to pull a trigger. In this example here, I just got a grenade ready, banked it off the wall, over the shoulder throw, badass, and then just followed up with the machine gun because I knew that maybe there was a chance it just wouldn't kill him. They're the ones that have to worry more about positioning than you do because they have NPCs on the map that can also take them out, so you have much less risk. Play around with positioning. You have a lot more authority to move around the map than they do. Get them cornered, get them boxed in, and use those other tools to either flush them out or take them out like this. Or in some cases like this melee kill, when they're panicking and there's chaos going on, everyone on the map knows where they are. I use that chaos to run in and take them out with a melee. Another quick one that might not be as obvious for newer players is using bullet penetration. The church map here, they have this scaffolding that they always hide on, and it's made of wood. So you can shoot through that wood directly or from underneath like this example. And sometimes if you just never seem to get the angle on them and they're still using that cover to their advantage, just try it, just test it out. I did it on this guardrail example here. I thought it was stone, but I don't know if it threaded the needle or what it did exactly to get to him, but just give it a try. Sometimes it might go through, sometimes it might even deflect and bounce into him. On this example, it took me a couple of shots, but I knew he was behind a curtain, so I took the shots anyways, and it ended up paying off. Again, for the next tip, it might be a little bit obvious, but familiarizing yourself not only with the map, but also with just the little hiding spots and secret rooms that people can access. because sometimes they hole up in them, like this French resistance room on the mansion map. Sometimes they use the hidey holes and they wait in them, and they just start to hole up when they see that somebody's invaded their game. So familiarizing yourself with these hiding spots and these secret rooms and how to access them can help you either beat them to the punch or even set traps in them. And not only are these hiding spots useful for setting traps or beating them to them so you can camp in them, you can also use them as indicators. Some of them, like this example here, have wood planks that they need to manually pull off first before they can access the spot. You can use that as an indicator to see whether they have or haven't been to that section of the map yet. If you see that the planks are missing, you know they might even be in there right now, or they've already been through that part of the map, so you can see how far along the mission they've gotten to. It's just another key little indicator that might help you find out where they're at. Another tip I would suggest is you don't necessarily have to use the focus aim ability, because even though these maps have a lot of verticality and hidden passages along the way, and they're very diverse, you might not necessarily have the longest sight lines from across the map to try and take your time and aim and everything, so it might be quicker not only to not use the ability, but also to know that your bullet isn't going to drop or sway too far from the crosshairs anyways. So even though each person you invade has different settings, some might have the wind off, some might have bullet drop, and some might be playing on a higher difficulty than others, the crosshairs will still be almost dead on from my experience. I mean, even if you just aim for a headshot, a lot of times you'll end up still with a shot through the heart. As long as you're aiming right on them, most of the time you're probably not going to be at a distance that really affects it too much, which I guess is a little disappointing in this game. But at the same time, you're hunting these people down, and a lot of times you just end up really close anyways, like this, for example. So, I mean, it's going to be right on the crosshairs, so you might as well just save yourself the time and save yourself from exposing your position for too long and just take the shots. The only time that I used focus mode really is when I was in the mansion and a guy was kind of further away in a building with really dark windows, and through the binoculars I could see him, but when I'd switched to my sniper scope it became kind of a little obscure and I couldn't really see him so much because the windows were a little dark. That's when I utilized the focusing mode. Then I knew that I was exactly on him, but it's not always necessary. So another little tip is pre-aiming. So sometimes you might have somebody trapped. They might be in a little hidey hole. They might be camping in a certain angle. You can see them with the third-person camera, for example, waiting there. And if you don't have any grenades left over, I would suggest you pre-aim and get yourself right at where they're going to be, and then pop the corner and shoot the shot. This technique has worked just about every time I've tried it. I'm not sure who in this scenario the game prefers. Maybe it prefers the person who's actually moving and popping out from the corner. But you can see this argument a lot of times in games like Call of Duty, questioning if the person who comes around the corner is the first one who has eyes on it and can pull the trigger first, or is it the person who's camping that has the advantage? I'm not sure, but I'd like to think the person popping the corner might have the advantage here. Another tip that I have is just being patient. You don't have to rush. I know that they have to complete their mission, and if they complete their mission, they win. And I had a horrible moment with that one time. It took me a while to track this guy down. I didn't know so much about the map at that time, so it took me a bit. I finally found the location where he was at. I saw the enemies kind of shooting at him one time, closed the distance in, but he was hiding in a bush, and the moment I found him and decided to go for the shot, the exact timing that I pulled the trigger, he finished the mission. Talk about bad luck. And this tip is kind of combined with melee kills, because being patient and tracking them down allows you to get in close the distance, and find opportunities when they're going to have their back turned to you, so you have just as many techniques as they do to survive. So you can use that third person angle to hide, and in this case there's a door here. I'm kind of behind the door, but I can still peek around the corner. If he were coming from that angle, there's no way he'd see me, not even with his third person angle. So utilize all that to your advantage as well to get in close. And also, not to mention, the melee itself kind of teleports. A bit like COD when you have the teleport knife problem. Is if you get close enough and you're hitting that melee button, it kind of seems like you have the advantage. And a lot of people are mostly caught by surprise when this happens anyways. So they don't expect the AI to come running in and meleeing them like that. It's a little cheese, I'll admit, I guess, but hey, I put in the work to get in close. I was stealthy enough that he didn't hear me coming. And lastly, if you're new to this and you haven't played these games before, using the binoculars doesn't show the sniper glare glint. So use the binoculars any chance you get. The sniper glint is incredibly huge. It looks like a bright spotlight. You end up looking like a lighthouse across the map, so it's super easy to identify where you are. Using those binoculars to tag every teammate you have along the map. Every NPC that you see, you should be tagging them just as much as they do, because they are your resource in helping find out where they are. As soon as you tag one of those NPCs, they're tagged forever. So if you remember, hey, I tagged that guy back there, but now there's an X on the map, you can see that they just killed. And another bonus is that if a tagged NPC spots the enemy, the red triangle that's spinning that shows the precise location of where they are is the last known location. But if it has been a little bit of time and you've come across the map to get there, they might not be in that exact spot anymore, but a lot of times they're just camping nearby it or still in that building. So utilize your special ability of tagging the nearby NPCs and use your binocs quick to just tag as many as you can just so you can identify their location. If any of you watching are already experienced in this game mode, go ahead and share some of your tips and tricks below. I love this game mode, so anything I can learn from you guys is great too. And like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.